I got real sick and went from being a restaurant manager and maintaining to not even being able to work a day, and just slowly but surely lost everything.
Well, I moved here from West Palm, and I stayed with my mom, and it wasn't working there. She was beating my daughter, and I just ended up here. I couldn't stand up to see her do that anymore.
First, lost my job, and then couldn't find another one, so bills started, piling up, and rent was due, so squeaked by the first month, but then by the third month, I couldn't pay, so, unfortunately, I had to let you go.
Yes, I was started as a server, worked my way up. The last restaurant here in town that I worked for was Mulligan's. I actually helped them open the Stewart and the Sebastian locations.
Child care.
I was a technician at a popular oil change place where I'd be doing oil changes and transmissions and stuff like that.
I never went to high school, but I went back and got my GED and went back to college at 30 before I got sick, and wound up leaving mid-semester, and that was part of my whole crash and burn. So, but now I'm back in school. I'm going full-time for human services, and I absolutely love it. If I could get paid to go to school forever, I would just be a full-time student. Like, I do. I really love it.
What, did you finish high school?
Yes.
Did you go to college?
No.
Did you go to college?
No, I did not go to college.
Finished high school?
Yes.
I couch surfed for about a year and a half before I came to the Homeless Family Center. I am really blessed to have a lot of great friends and family that were trying to help me out, but you know, everybody's having rough times right now, so it just got to the point where it was becoming more and more difficult to maintain without being a burden.
We were 6 months
Where were you at?
bouncing from house to house.
I was homeless a little bit more than 6 months.
Did you ever think that you would become homeless?
No, certainly not. You know, I got married when I was 16 and had my older kids. I had 3 by the time I was 20, and I took pride in the fact that I had never gone the welfare route. I had never gone the food stamp route. I would work 2 and 3 jobs if I had to make ends meet. So I never thought that I would be in a position where I couldn't even put food on the table, let alone a table to sit at. That was never in the realm of possibilities.
What's your dad's name again?
Was anyone helping you when you became homeless?
I had my old roommate that was trying to help me for a little bit, but then his landlord was catching on, and that had to stop.
Were you married at the time?
No, I was single.
Did you have any children?
No, no children.
Did you ever think in your life you would be homeless?
No. There was no way I would be homeless. That didn't even occur to me.
What did you learn by being homeless?
Humility. Doing things you probably thought you'd never do in life. Just survival. And once I was back on my feet, I didn't know it then, but I realized that, inner strength. It's how far you can be pushed before you break. And you find that you can be pushed a little bit farther than you think you can, even though it feels like you can't, but you still try to keep going on until you try to look for that glimmer of hope. The job interviews I would come across thinking, I have this job, I got it, I'm going to be back on my feet. Then they hire somebody else because you have no permanent address or no phone number. That was some of the times I got told, it's the only reason we can't hire you. How do you get past that when you don't have an address or a phone number?
What was the hardest part of being homeless for you?
Not knowing what to do, not knowing what my next step would be, trying to figure out, because I was fortunate enough to have a 1972 Buick Skylark that I bought very inexpensive. That was my house, but couldn't park on the same street because then the police would notice and come up and hassle you. So you'd have to have money for the car to drive it. I did have insurance, obviously. I let that run out, so couldn't really drive around town that much because I didn't want to get caught. Knowing where your next meal is going to come from. How are you going to shower? Those are some of the hardest things. Sitting in your, I was by myself. Your mind spins when you're in your car by yourself trying to figure out, what to do, and you start talking to yourself and coming up with all these crazy ideas that are usually not in your best interest. So that was, it was definitely the worst time of my life.
When did this happen for you? How long ago?
This happened in 1990 to 1991, in between that period of time. I was 20 years old. Like I said, I was working, lost my job, then lost my apartment. Had a friend who would let me once in a while crash on his couch, but then his landlord figured it out, so he couldn't do that because then he was going to get kicked out, which I couldn't do. I remember, back in the day, McDonald's used to pre-make their hamburgers and their breakfast foods. So breakfast was over at 10:30, so about 10:45 I used to go over to the local McDonald's and dig through their trash because they'd throw away food that was wrapped up still because they couldn't serve it anymore. And they do the same thing at night when they closed. So for months, that's actually how I ate to stay alive.
And are you homeless now?
No, I am not. I actually got an opportunity 6 months after being homeless. I was in Southern California at the time. I was calling my sister in Chicago, Illinois, collect. And on the third phone call, she told me if I could get to Chicago, she would help me out. That day I went into the local tavern I used to go to and said, who wants to buy my car? I sold my car for $250. I bought a bus ticket to Chicago, and I had no money after the bus ticket. I remember, this is an important part of the story because I didn't eat for the 3 days. And the second day into it, a gentleman noticed after all the stops that I wasn't eating and forced me almost to accept breakfast that he was paying for. And that's something I'll never forget. And when I walked into Chicago, I weighed under 150 pounds. So that was my step up from somebody who had an opportunity to give me a way out, and I took it, and I've never looked back.
If you ever saw this guy again that bought you breakfast, would you buy him breakfast?
Oh, if he could probably get me off him, I'd probably hug him to death. It's a memory 25 years later, it still sticks in my head. I would definitely buy him breakfast. I would buy him lunch, I'd buy him dinner. I would like to actually sit down and get to know him to find out the reason why he did it, and does he remember it? And an act of kindness goes a long way. It really does. Don't judge a book by its cover. Get to actually know the person. You'd be surprised on whom you'll find out is actually homeless and who really wants help. People I've always met and myself wanted help. We were just looking for a hand to give us that next step up to continue to get out of the position that we're currently in. So look deeper than what you see on the exterior of somebody. Get to know them. You might be very surprised at who you might find.